All right, let's talk about the way the woke turn on their own. And I've got to say, you've got to feel sorry for those on the progressive left who fall victim to the vitriol of those they have supported. And I'm seeing it time and time again. In fact, I talked about it this week on my Inside Media column for 7 News, but I thought it was worth covering here on McKnight Tonight. Let's take a look at the case of ABC Melbourne radio presenter Bob Murphy. The former AFL Western Bulldog star is often described as woke. When he referred to the men's competition as AFLM for men in a recent newspaper column, he was making a bid to separate it from the women's AFLW. He was cheered on by some, but mostly ridiculed for his use of the term. So here's a guy who fights for equality and what he believes is equality and inclusivity, despite whatever backlash he might receive. So he's a lefty. He's woke. Okay? Now, this isn't judgment at the moment. I'm just making that point. Did any of the causes he supports and his political leanings matter when Murphy made a silly joke while on air with Chanel Vella when he insinuated during their breakfast show on ABC radio that she worked at the Melbourne strip club Spearmint Rhino? Here's what happened in case you missed it.
Eleanor, I remember when I worked in retail many moons ago, when I was still in high school.
Not at Spearmint Rhino.
No,
the other one.
No, I couldn't afford to. I couldn't afford to go to a financial advisor.
I think I'm in the minority that I don't think that was a big deal. It was a silly joke between two people who were supposedly friends. But that doesn't matter my thoughts on that joke at the moment, because the day after, he was forced to issue a grovelling apology.
Got a lot of news to get through this morning that sits outside of this studio, but I think it'll be pertinent, certainly from my point of view, just to start with some news that came out of this studio. So if I can just have people's attention just for a brief moment. For those of you who listened to the show yesterday or have woken up to a story in the newspaper that refers to an inappropriate comment I made yesterday, I think I need to address that publicly to apologise. I did make a comment that insinuated my colleague and co-host Chanel here worked at Spearmint Rhino, a well-known Melbourne strip club. Cutting straight to the point, it was not just a mistake, it was a gross and inaccurate offhand quip. I promised Chanel that I'd never disrespect her, and I did break that promise. Put simply, I'm really sorry.
Look, I won't let you off the hook on it. It wasn't okay. I appreciate your words, but we do move on.
You know, the way they've handled that has completely destroyed that show. There's no future for that show. They can't have banter because everything is taken so seriously, a stupid joke where he's just trying to be funny. But I've done a whole piece on that for Inside Media on my 7 News column. You can just Google that. I might try and leave some links around so you can find that. So not only was he forced to issue that grovelling and horrible apology, but those who he had stood up for were quick to turn on him, labelling him misogynistic. And in fact, when I made the point and put it on my socials that the way she reacted to that had destroyed any goodwill towards the show and any chemistry that they might have had, I was attacked for blaming the victim. I wasn't doing that. I was talking about how teams work together, cover each other's asses, and try to do the best for the team. None of that happened here. But seriously, go and read my column or watch the YouTube video. Now, it turns out you can't, talking of banking any goodwill, you can't do that with the woke brigade, because if you make one mistake, you become the enemy. And this is a take no prisoners situation. Now, I remember when Jessica Rose suffered a similar fate back in 2021 because, and get this, she dared to interview Pauline Hanson for her podcast, the Jess Rowe Big Talk Show. Now, the left turned on Rowe and she pulled the episode after a massive backlash despite doing nothing wrong. She was simply talking to an elected official. Why? You can't even talk to an elected official? No, we're platforming Pauline Hanson. I mean, Jessica even made the point that she didn't agree with Hanson's politics, but she was accused of platforming the One Nation leader who is a federal politician who is platformed. The thing I don't understand to this very day, though, is that if you ever watched just one episode of Studio 10, and I know a lot of people watching this did, you would know Jessica is a kind-hearted big lefty. So even if she had made the wrong call by interviewing Hanson, and I don't believe she made the wrong call. But even if she did, didn't she deserve a pass? Didn't she deserve some kindness for all the people she had stood up for, all the issues on the left that she had supported? Well, apparently not. It turns out you're only embraced by those on the extreme left until you dare step out of line. Whether you actually have stepped out of line is questionable, but it's whether they believe that you have stepped out of line. Bob Murphy is a progressive lefty. Some call him woke. Whatever. It's fair enough to be whatever he wants to be. He can wear his politics on his sleeve. He's giving his opinions on stuff. That's fine. It's just a shame that the people and issues he supports didn't support him after he made a silly joke. And that's why the woke, those on the hard left and those a lot of people call woke, they eat themselves. Because there is no tolerance for mistakes. And there's no tolerance if you step out of line. You got to be careful being a lefty.